Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good afternoon. I can see we have Lucy Njoki, we have Lucy Mulago, I can see Jabura, and I can see our Vice Chair, Florence. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, it's good to see you all. Yes. Let me just type on the group that we have started the preparation session. All right, I've done that on the group. So Jabura will be admitting the other speakers as we go along. So maybe we can just check in on audibility and all, and then we can start just running through the session plan. I think we had, I don't know, Lucy Njoki, had you tried to?
Good afternoon. This is Lucy, but not Njoki.
Yes, Lucy
This is
Mulago.
yes. It's good that I have a namesake. Yes. Can you hear
Yes.
me? I'm on transit, but I'm almost getting where I'm going. I'll manage.
Okay, no problem. At least we can
Okay.
hear you. I can see Jemima has also joined us. Jemima, welcome to the prep session.
Thank you. I think you had requested I join the prep session, so I've decided to create time for you. Thank you. And thanks for agreeing to be the moderator. I think, yeah, it just come in handy.
Thank you so much, and for always making things move.
I know. I was so tough with you, but you know how my working style is.
I do. I'm not surprised, but thank you so much for creating this space. So, not all the panelists have joined, but
who has not joined? Is Kimuli here?
No, Maurice is not here. I also don't have the bios of everyone. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Jemima can share that with me. Okay. So we'll be having Jabura on the call, and Jabura is going to be assisting us from our WADA team. He'll make sure that people are admitted and muted, and of course allow you to present. So thank you so much for that, Jabura. So let me just go to the session plan. Okay, sorry for that. I hope I am back and audible. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Okay, sawa. Thank you. So this webinar is a pre-conference webinar, and of course the AJS conference is coming up in June, and so there's a series of webinars And this particular webinar is on the intersection between AJS and gender justice in Kenya. As you may all know, AJS has been there since 2019. And so we'll just be looking at, practically speaking, because this year's conference is looking at data and numbers. We don't want to just give experiences without backing them with numbers. So, or giving reports without backing them with experiences. And so we'd want this webinar to also be equally practical. So that's the webinar topic. I'll be your moderator for today. I'm the chair of the Traditional Dispute Resolution Mechanisms Committee under the Women in ADR. And the Women in ADR is the host of this particular webinar. And our association is geared to platforming women in ADR. So giving them a platform to grow professionally, but also serve their communities using the different ADR mechanisms. So this webinar is going to run from 2:30 to 4 p.m. And we're going to have a 10-minute opening where we'll just be setting in a context. So I'll introduce myself and the webinar. And then at that juncture, I'll introduce, of course, women in ADR. I will call on to Jemima. So Jemima, at this point, this is where I will, Jemima has dropped off. It's okay. Oh, welcome, Ria, and welcome, Maurice. Karibuni sana.
Hello.
Maybe we can hear your voices. Hi.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for the invitation.
Nice to see you too, Ria, and thank you for accepting the invitation. Maurice, are you able to hear us? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, asante sana. So we will have Jemima come in at the beginning to just say something about the 4th National Conference that is coming on the 16th to the 19th of June, and talk about the theme and what their objectives are this year. So all that will happen within the first 10 minutes as people are coming in. Then we will have an introduction of the panelists. I will introduce each of you. I do know I have received very rich bios. Currently, I only have, I don't know if I have everybody's bio. I have Maurice, I have your bio. I have your bio, Lucy Njoki from Groots. Lucy Mulago, I don't think I have your bio. I don't know if you could just WhatsApp me your short bio. And as well, Ria, if you could also kindly share your bio. I'm sorry if you've already shared it and I'm having to ask you to share it again. I'm just requesting for that. So I'll read your short bios. I will not read everything, but I'll just introduce you briefly. And then we can now start the webinar context itself. So we'll have an opening question for everyone. And I'll just be asking an opener question. Why is the integration of gender justice very vital when we talk about alternative justice systems in Kenya? And especially as we move towards a more people-centered justice model. So how do we ensure that this intersection becomes a reality? So the first one is just to lay a context. What is the intersection between AJS and gender justice from your different perspectives? And then we will have Maurice come up as the first panelist who I'll give time to share a bit. Maurice is he's the LSK representative of the National Steering Committee on Alternative Justice System. So he'll be able to speak on behalf of the committee and what they've been able to do from inception, from when you visualized AJS, from the task force all the way to implementation about 6 years down the line. So how are you ensuring that gender justice is embedded within the AJS context? Yeah, and I had already sent the question, so right now I'm just summarizing. So for you, Maurice, you'd be able to share with us practically, just walk us through what AJS does, the committee, and why gender justice is very important, from the time you began, how it has unfolded, and where you're at this point. Then we'll have on my list, then we'll have Lucy from FIDA. FIDA has been, of course, is a champion of women's rights, legal rights, through the work that they do. But also they've been champions of AJS since inception in terms of training and really supporting the agenda of AJS. So from that perspective, how maybe just mention what you've been able to do with regards to integrating or ensuring that gender justice is a reality as you implement AJS in the context that you work in. I had already had a conversation with Lucy, and just to share with her that as you give those examples, share what FIDA has been able to do. There's also a rise in a lot of, women-related issues. Gender is not just women, but there's been a rise in femicide. There's been a rise in a lot of, issues to do with women in the country. So whereas AJS might not have jurisdiction to fully deal with issues around femicide, what are the areas that it can actually help? And she already gave me some ideas on what can be done. Then we can go to Lucy Njoki from Groots Kenya. Groots Kenya is an organization that is championing, the grassroots women and communities. They work directly with communities. So for them, their sharing will be more from a very practical perspective of looking at how AJS has translated in the community, and particularly with regards to ensuring gender justice. And they'll be able to talk about what they've done as Groots Kenya to ensure that this is, local AJS is not just accessible, but is also gender responsive. Okay. Then we have Mary Njeri. I don't know if she's on this call. Mary, I don't know if Mary is here. Yes, I can see Mary Kimotho. Is this Mary, the same Mary? Okay. Right. So we have Mary from UN Women.
I think that is Mary Kimoda is from Laikipia. Maybe she's just joined to listen the conversation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We are doing a preparation session. So the webinar will start at 2:30. So in case you've joined in early, feel free to just give us time to put our house in order. We will start at 2:30 p.m. Thank you. So yeah, we'll have Mary Njeri from UN Women, and UN Women is a global body that champions gender justice at a global level. So we'll be asking them more around, and she's representing the faction of ending violence against women. So she'll be talking about AJS may not have a full jurisdiction to handle, gender GBV matters, but how has UN Women worked to strengthen the role of AJS to be able to identify these cases? So she's talking more from that policy kind of level. And then we have Ria from IDLO. IDLO has been a promoter of AJS since inception. You have supported AJS in so many ways. And we'd like to know, AJS is not, it may not be the only kind of structure that exists globally. So for you, Ria, would like to know, how has AJS performed, if we benchmark ourselves globally? What are the things that, could be integrated to make it better, or what lessons can other jurisdictions learn from the context of how Kenya's AJS has unfolded, especially with regards to gender justice? So that is the main gist of the matter of what we're going to be discussing. So I had put a kind note there that let's share real examples, let's talk about figures, so that it hits the ground and we're not just sharing things that feel like theory. Yeah. I may tweak the question depending on how the previous panelist has, has answered their question. I may ask you to respond to something, but I'll try and keep it within your context so that it's not an ambush. Yeah, so that's the flow. It will take around 50 minutes for us to have our discussion. Then after that, we will open it up to the audience and have them ask questions, share experiences, and I'll be asking them to share to a specific panelist. So if you get a question, we'll ask you specifically, then you'll have a very short time to answer the question. Then we'll do a round of a parting shot. So depending on time, I may insist on just speak for in 30 seconds, kindly give a rejoinder. Please don't feel offended. I'll just be trying to keep time so that we don't go past 4 p.m. It's a Friday. Yeah, so after that, then I'll be able to conclude with a moderator synthesis and we can close off the webinar. So that is the layout I had, but I'm open to hearing from you. You maybe have thought about different ways to do it. So I've opened the floor for any discussions. Thank you.
Joy, I have a quick question.
Yes, yeah.
For the first two questions that you have, how many minutes approximately do we have? Is it like 3-4 minutes for the first couple of questions coming from you?
Okay, yes. So for the discussion part is in two parts. There's the general question I'll ask. Do you feel like is the nexus between AJS and gender justice? That's for everyone. We can each answer it in 2 minutes each. So your 5 of you, 2 minutes would take around 10 minutes. Then for the other questions, because we have now 40 minutes left, I will request that we try and keep our responses to 7 minutes maximum. I'll just keep time, but approximately 7 minutes. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ria. Let me see whose bio I don't have yet. Okay, Lucy, I have yours. Ria, I don't have yours. Kindly share.
Joy, I shared it on WhatsApp.
Oh, great. I've just seen it. Thank you so much. Then Maurice, I have. So I think I have everyone's except Mary. I don't know if Mary has managed to join the call. Mary, let me just check.
Hi, Joy. Yes, I've been in. So
oh, great. Thank you. I hope you had.
I got in when you were discussing about the role, I think, or the question that would come my way, and I saw you talked about policy. So, but I have the question. If it's a question that was shared on the PDF, then
Yes.
unless it has changed, you can let me know.
Okay, yeah. Generally, it's that, and of course, UN Women being, at global policy level, yeah, you'd be able to share from that lens. Yeah, so I think that's the general plan.
Again, you had said you will ask me what?
Yes. So Maurice, thank you. For you being that you're part of the steering committee, you're a steering committee member, yours will be you'll have the first question, because I'd like you to lay a foundation of how gender justice has unfolded within AJS from inception. And, how are you ensuring that it's part of it from the time you started off 2019 to how it's unfolding to perhaps even the future that you see. Yeah. Is that okay?
Okay, that's okay.
Yes, that's okay.
The AJS process started in 2016 when the Chief Justice gazetted
Yes.
a task force.
Okay.
And then we
That's
did our
Justice
work.
Maraga.
Yes. No,
Okay.
that was Justice. We were gazetted by. We were
Mutunga.
appointed by Justice Mutunga
Okay.
just before he left.
Yes.
Chief Justice, yeah, and then we did our work until Katiba Day in the year 2020, August, when we launched 27th, when we launched the policy.
Okay.
And immediately after that, then the task force was put in place.
Okay. I like the context you've given because we don't want to assume everybody in the call actually understands AJS and knows what it is. So it would be
No,
really good.
I was saying that, yes, because I heard you talk about 2019.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you for correcting me on that. I think 2019 was when the policy was launched. Am I correct? Or
It
2020?
was 2020.
Okay. Noted. Thank you for that. 2020. So I think it would be really good to hear that genesis. It's very important for context and also just sharing the journey you've
Jemima, am
walked.
I right or I'm wrong? Jemima, she has dropped out.
Who?
I was calling out Jemima.
Oh, Jemima. Yeah, she's dropped out. I think she'll join back later. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We are a few minutes to starting. You can just prep yourselves for the next 6 minutes or so. Then we will start. But I look forward to having an engaging conversation. In case you would like to make a comment administratively, you can use the WhatsApp group. Just text me. I'll keep checking in case there's something you need to let me know of. And Jabura is here. He's part of Women in ADR, and he'll be assisting us with making sure that we stay audible online. So if you have any technical issues, please let me know and we can have Jabura fix it. Yeah, so see you in a few minutes. Asante. A very good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this session. It is exactly 2:30 and it is great to see you all having joined us. Welcome to this pre-conference webinar that is hosted by Women in ADR. Just to make you settle in, we have some emojis at the top, at the bottom of your screen. They are written, there's a button written react. So you could press it and just say a hello using an emoji. Thank you. It's good to see you all. Thank you. Thank you and karibuni all to this session. We will start in a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. We will now start our webinar. This afternoon. Good afternoon once again, and welcome to this pre-conference webinar. My name is Joy Gitao. I am honored to moderate this great session that is ahead of us. I'm the current chair of the Traditional Dispute Resolution Mechanisms Subcommittee at the Women in ADR. And the Women in ADR is an organization whose mission is solely to empower and elevate women practitioners in the field of alternative justice, alternative dispute resolution. So we provide support and opportunities to support them excel even as they make a difference in their communities. So our work revolves around platforming women in the field of ADR to make them, be able to perform their work in the communities and make the necessary impact. So today we are thrilled to be a part of the road to the 4th National Conference on Alternative Justice Systems, which will take place from the 16th to the 19th of June 2026 at the University of Embu. The theme of this year's conference is data-driven pathways for people-centered justice in Kenya. Invites us to look closely at how we can innovate and consolidate justice outcomes. Sorry, just a second. Sorry for that. I'll take that again. So we are thrilled to be part of the road to the fourth National Conference on Alternative Justice Systems, which will take place from the 16th of June to the 19th of June at the University of Embu. The theme of this year's conference is data-driven pathways for people-centered justice in Kenya. And we're being invited to take a close look at how we can innovate and consolidate justice outcomes. So this particular webinar will be to discuss a vital piece to that puzzle. We'll be looking at how AJS, alternative justice systems, relate to gender justice, AJS and gender justice, and how do we advance freedoms through this intersection between AJS and gender justice. So we will be here for about 1.5 hours, and we will have an exciting conversation. We have esteemed panelists from different backgrounds who will be sharing their perspectives, and we'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions, share your experiences from the ground, so that we make sure that this particular agenda gets to where it needs to get. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all once again to this great session. And I don't know if I'd like to invite the Secretariat Lead of the National Steering Committee on AJS, Ms. Jemima Aluda. And I'd like her to just say a warm hello as she shares one or two things about the upcoming conference before we delve into today's topic. Jemima, I welcome you. Jemima, I'm not sure we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Joy. Good afternoon, our discussants. Good afternoon, all our team that has joined. We are so excited to have this webinar. We've had so many concerns of people saying, does AJS diminish the rights of women? Do women have freedoms in AJS sessions? What are some of the gains that we've had in implementing the AJS policy and the diverse pathways to justice? And so this becomes a very interesting discussion from our panelists who are experts in different ways in terms of access to justice for women, in terms of research, bring global experience in terms of customary justices through the expertise of ID law, but also for us who are implementing the diverse pathways of justice in the country. At this time, I know we are grappling with the intersect between formal and the AJS mechanisms, but I want to say, do we have gains or have we had gains? And I think our panelists this particular afternoon will be able to shed more lights in this, and mainly also focusing on the constitutional principles on access, provisions on access to justice in regard to Article 48, the rights of minorities in regards to Article 27, realization of the national values and principles of governance in regard to Article 10, and more importantly, the implementation of Article 159(2)(c). Thank you, Joy, and we are excited about this session. Back to you, Joy.
Thank you so much, Jemima. It's always good to hear from you. And thank you to the National Steering Committee for continuously championing AJS and for making gender justice, sit at the heart of the work that AJS does. So Thank you so much for that. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our esteemed panelists. I have told you we have a rich panel this afternoon. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about each of them. And the first person that I have the honor of introducing is none other than Mr. Maurice Kimuli, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with over 20 years experience. He has worked as the partner of BM Musau and Co-Advocates before leaving to set up MM Kimuli and Co-Advocates. Maurice Kimuli is currently he has served as a member of the Task Force on Alternative Justice Systems, which developed the comprehensive policy and guidelines of the alternative justice systems in Kenya. He is presently a member of the National Steering on Implementation of Alternative Justice Policy, representing the Law Society of Kenya. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Maurice Kimuli with a hand clap as we go to the next speaker that I will introduce. Thank you. The next speaker who I have the honor of introducing is Miss Lucy Mulago. Miss Lucy Mulago is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, 8 years standing. She's also a FIDA board member, a pro bono, and then won the Pro Bono Advocate of the Year 2025, and is a trustee of Mombasa Law Society. Help me welcome Miss Lucy Mulago. Thank you so much. Asanteni sana. And I'll also be having the privilege to introduce to you Miss Lucy Njoki. Just a second. Miss Lucy Njoki is a Roots Kenya champion and an active member of the Land Rights Watchdog Group with a strong focus on advancing land and property rights within grassroots communities. She's also a trained alternative dispute resolution practitioner and an AJS practitioner. Help me welcome Miss Lucy Njoki from Roots. Asanteni sana. Thank you, thank you. Then I have the honor of introducing Miss Ria Abada Chingsong. Apologies if I have not done your name justice. She is the Chief for Women and the Law at the International Development Law Organization. She has more than 25 years of experience in the field of gender law, development, and human rights. She is IDLO's global lead when it comes to gender work across research, policy, and programming. And she's worked across various sectors in the field of gender and justice as a gender and justice advisor. So help me welcome Ms. Ria. Thank you so much. And then last but not least, we have Miss Mary Njeri, who is the lead of Ending Violence Against Women at the United Nations Women, UN Women. Thank you, and help me welcome her. So as you can see, we have distinguished panelists from different sectors. We have someone from our steering committee. We have somebody else from FIDA, which we all know the work of FIDA, but she'll talk more about it. We have someone from Roots. This is now a grassroots organization. And we also have representatives from international organizations, UN Women and IDLO. So our conversation today will span from what is happening at the grassroots all the way to policy level at national and international level. So with that, I'd like to just ask our panelists, thank you so much for the encouragement we're giving them. I'd like us to just delve into the first question for this webinar session. And I'd just like to understand so that we are all on the same page. Why is the integration of gender justice so vital when it comes to discussing alternative justice systems in Kenya? Why is it so vital? So we can just take that as a first round of a question, and we can start with Maurice to just share briefly, and then we can go to our next panelists. Just 1 minute each, and then we'll go into specific questions. Maurice, I yield the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joy, and I believe you can hear me, and thank you for having me this afternoon. Straight to the point, the reason why alternative justice systems must engender gender justice is because gender is part of who we are. Men and women constitute the society, and dispute resolution is about peaceful coexistence of all of us who live in this world. And therefore, that is basically the reason why we can't leave anyone out of alternative justice systems.
Thank you. Very well put. That AJS is really about providing justice to both men and women. So gender justice is not just about women. Thank you so much. We can now hear from Miss Lucy Mulago, kindly.
Thank you, Joy. By my senior friend, Mr. Kimuli. Yes, gender justice, as he said, we cannot exist without peaceful coexistence between both men and women. And as FIDA Kenya, we come in to just ensure that women who have been marginalized for a long time have this access and also have their voices heard in AJS. I'm happy and glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thanks for that opener. Now we can have Miss Lucy Njoki from Groups.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and to represent the grassroots women. And according to me, AJS is dialogue based, and as communities, sometimes it is very hard for us to understand the issues which are killing us in our communities unless we have dialogues. And since AJS is dialogue based, that's why as community members, we see it is quite important to us. AJS also doesn't have a lot of technicalities because especially for us grassroots, sometimes we feel threatened by some of the technicalities and just take a back seat and watch things. But for AJS, it doesn't have a lot of technicalities, and it also helps to ease the backlog of cases in the courts. So to me, AJS is a mutual, it's the method that will help the vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Lucy. If you may allow me to just further ask you, so how do you feel gender justice comes, how does it come about now in that conversation around AJS from your perspective? Thank you.
Pardon?
How do you feel gender justice comes about when it comes to AJS? Now, from what you've said, that AJS, is there to help the community. So, where would gender justice? What is the connection?
Okay, the connection is that we will be able to connect. The AJS will be able to help the community members to get justice in a speedy way.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing us that perspective and also emphasizing on the AJS as a tool for community, and so it must include everyone. We'll now have now going to Miss Mary Njeri from UN Women.
Thank you very much. I think my colleagues have already said a lot about it, that access to justice, alternative justice systems is really seeks to improve access to justice for both women and men, but the approach of justice, but they approach this from a different starting point. And of course, we know that it can either reinforce or challenge existing gender inequalities. So I think it's a very important role that enhances access, affordability, and culturally familiar ways of solving differences.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And you mentioned something important. It can either reinforce existing vulnerabilities and challenges or, resolve the challenges. Thank you so much for that insight. And last but not least, we can have Ms. Ria just give her insights on what is the connection between AJS and gender justice from your point of view.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you for the invitation. I think I'd like to highlight three things. I mean, first, the connection is because women use these systems. So we know CIJ systems are the most widely used justice systems. Many justice seekers seek them for justice, and majority of the women rely on these dispute resolution systems on many issues of significance to them, whether it's family rights, property, land and natural resources, and in many cases, even violence against women and girls. And I think the second point I wanted to highlight is that because we also know by now and many decades ago that these systems can be skewed against women and can favor male-dominated structures, patriarchal values, and have discriminatory outcomes for women. So unless we engage with them, we are sending women to systems that we know will already fail them. And I think my third point is that because it's quite timely at this point, there is growing recognition and realization that we cannot ignore these systems when we are talking about justice. So it's important for women to also be, for gender to be considered as we develop and support and strengthen these systems moving forward. Knowing what we know now, these systems are not static and there is contestation and negotiations around how these systems will be shaped, not just in the present, but in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ria, for that. And I hear from you that development of justice systems should go hand in hand with, ensuring that gender justice is embedded within that to ensure that we're not entrenching existing vulnerabilities of women and girls or sending them to a system that would fail them. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think from that first part of our session today, we already see that there is a very strong connection between gender justice and AJS, and the reason that we are saying as we develop AJS, it's very important that we incorporate aspects of gender justice. So just to a note to the audience, thank you all for joining. Please feel free to engage with us on the chat box. Let us know if you've heard about AJS, what you know about it. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to put them on the chat box so that we will have sessions where we can engage with you. So as you've all heard, AJS didn't just come about. AJS started somewhere. And the genesis of AJS in terms of legal structure began with the 2010 Constitution and Article 159 2C that breathed life into the multi-door approach to justice. And our Constitution provides that Kenyans can be able to access justice through a multi-door approach. And one of the mechanisms provided there is our traditional justice systems. And of course, through the blueprint of our Chief Justice on social transformation through access to justice, this has become a reality. So we'll have our first speaker for this next segment, who's going to be Maurice Kimuli. Maurice, as I mentioned, sits in the National Steering Committee as the LSK representative. He was part of the task force that came up with, AJS when it was still an idea. So it would be very good to hear from him as they thought about a people-centered justice system through AJS, what had they thought about accounting for, unique vulnerabilities of women, girls, and just basically that conversation around gender justice. So, Mr. Kimuli, if you could be able to take us through what this looked like at the inception of AJS, how it has unfolded, and perhaps even what the future looks like. So, Mr. Kimuli, I would like to just give you the floor for you to share some insights on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We started actually in 2015 as a team that was appointed by the then Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga. And our task was to examine and to see the best way to give life to Article 159(2)(c), particularly where it talks about traditional systems of dispute resolution. And we were gazetted in 2016 as a task force, and our work was to collect ideas. And the way we did it was by going around the country. We've gone everywhere in this country. We sat where people were resolving disputes. We went to clan meetings. We went to, places where communities were having dispute resolution sessions. We sat down and listened and learned and observed what they were doing. We went to communities where both men and women are considered elders. And I need to say, the word traditional in the Constitution, the way we have construed it, does not necessarily and exclusively refer to customary law or customary norms. Traditional here is used in that sense, but also in the sense that we are talking about something you know, something you are accustomed to, something you have employed for a long time as a tool to reach a particular end. And so when you talk about traditional dispute resolution systems, I urge you to think beyond customary law, because dispute resolution systems change, and many of them are not just founded on custom or customary law or traditional practices of a particular community. And one of the things we learned is that apart from those who live within unique communities, there are also people who live in mixed spaces, like in cities, in towns where you have a Luo, you have a Kamba, you have a Muslim, and they have systems of resolving disputes. Those systems still fall within the context of traditional dispute resolution systems, because these are the systems people are accustomed to. What you recognize as your preferred and applicable mode of dispute resolution, that is what we call traditional. And so from the outset, our approach was to observe what was happening, and our mantra was, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And so we found communities where, like the Kamba and the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin, where those sitting to resolve disputes were both men and women. And in fact, among the Kamba, an elder for the purpose of dispute resolution, the word we use is mutumea. And mutumea is both male and female. And they both sit, and they have a seat at the table, and they resolve matters. And this was happening in a number of spaces where we went. And the children were, the youth were involved in a number of places we went to. And we also went to a number of other places where they didn't regard highly the participation of women in the process of dispute resolution. In fact, I remember in some sections of this country, I observed a situation where if you have a dispute, you appear before the panel alone, and then you state your case, and then you are told to move out. And I saw a woman then, come alone, and somebody has stated their case. You've not had an opportunity to hear what they have said. And I saw a woman then come in and, you are not being heard alone. You are being told, you know why you are here, can you tell us? And you've not heard what your accuser said. And so we observed that there was a mixed bag of lessons. And so we said, where it is not broken, we were not going to fix it. But where it was broken, then we had the duty to educate the actors in alternative justice. And I can tell you this, we have educated, almost everyone who deals with dispute resolution, not just in the traditional setting, but also in the modern setting, where you find people belong to a Matatu association. For a very long time, it was believed that, people who run Matatus are men. And there are some businesses that do not accommodate women. And where you believe that certain businesses do not accommodate women, it means that if there is a dispute, then a woman may not be, given the best opportunity. So we educated those groups because AJS works in this way. First of all, it is recognized by the Constitution, and that is what we told the people that we met. And therefore, all of us have a duty to respect the fact that we are not inventing alternative justice systems. We are recognizing that which exists and that which has existed since time immemorial. Most of us can't remember where the dispute resolution mechanisms we know today in our communities, where they started. So we recognize that which exists. We honor it. We respect it. So all of us have a duty to respect the fact that AJS is here to stay, and you cannot lightly wish it away. And therefore, once you recognize that it exists, then the next duty is the duty then to promote it. And you promote it by recognizing the outcomes, by recognizing that it is happening and it is resolving disputes in real time and giving weight to those resolutions. And ultimately, we all have a duty then to transform. And this is where we engaged a lot with the communities that we met. The duty to transform. Where it is broken, you don't throw it away. In fact, we used to tell them that there's a saying that you don't throw away the baby with the bath water. Just because the water has gotten dirty, you don't throw it away. And we observed a number of manifestations of gender imbalances in the way AJS manifested in certain places, the right to be heard, the right to call witnesses, the proportionality of the penalties that are given, the reasonableness of the penalties. We were told by some communities that if you are fighting with your husband and it's about conjugal rights, what they would do then is to tell you to have a mat, or those days there were no mattresses, have a mat somewhere, and then do whatever you are supposed to do as everybody is watching to confirm this is execution in the traditional sense. And that defiles every bit of human dignity. And so we tell them, no, there are some things you can't do. You cannot cane people. You cannot subjugate a gender just because they are women. And so that is where the duty then to transform comes in, to continue the conversation. And I like what Lucia said. I don't know who said it's a dialogue. You continue the conversation. And when it is a continuing conversation, you do not have to be present when the conversation starts. You don't even have to buy in when the discussion begins. A conversation means that you're joining when you come. And then it's a continuing conversation on alternative justice. And there are those who are there from the beginning. There are those who are coming in now. There are those who believe that women should not have been involved in dispute resolution mechanisms. They are not there to be heard. We are converting them. We are changing their way of thinking through the duty to transform. And we are telling them it is not too late for you to join the conversation. You can join today, and you will not be any lesser in the conversation because somebody else joined yesterday. And there is somebody who will join tomorrow. And that is why this conversation must continue. And that is what we have been doing as a committee. We have gone around. We have trained professionals like lawyers. We have trained magistrates and judges. We have trained those who run tribunals. We have trained the Judicial Service Commission. We have trained commissions that are dealing with dispute resolution, and we are telling them the same story, that alternative justice system requires to be promoted, to be respected, and to be transformed as circumstances require. I think I can stop there for now. Joy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimuli. We can see that this is, of course, something you're really passionate about, and thank you for walking us through that journey. I'm a bit curious, maybe in a minute. I don't know if you have any statistics. What is the representation, perhaps, of where men versus women, the parity, gender parity, when it comes to some of those AJS setups, as well as do you have any mechanisms that have been put in place through the AJS system to report any forms of gender injustice? So maybe you can take that in a minute, then we'll come back to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. When we started, a lot of people didn't understand where we were coming from and where we were going. And a lot of people were stuck in the old ways of doing things. You know, most of our societies, this side of the world, are very patriarchal, and we must accept that changing, patriarchism is not very easy. And so it's block by block, and now we are seeing light at the end of what used to be a very dark tunnel. In most of the places you go now, the question is not even there whether women should participate in alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, traditional dispute resolution mechanisms, whether they have equal rights with men, whether they should be heard when they have grievances, whether they should be heard as witnesses. Traditionally, even in matters of land, a woman would have to get the husband's brother to speak for her if the husband was dead or was away, because they believed that if there is a land dispute or something touching on land or your family, a woman should not be heard. It must be a man, speaking for her like an intermediate. So that is changing. In fact, in a lot of places we are going now, it's actually an embarrassment for anybody to suggest that you can have somebody speaking for a woman just because that person is a woman. And we have a policy that clearly and carefully delineates what needs to be done. How you constitute panels that are going to hear disputes. And I can tell you now, you are unlikely to find any panel hearing a matter which is disproportionate in terms of gender balance. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but we are talking about representation. And we agree that Rome was not built in a day. There are places I can tell you we have gone where there are actually more women than men sitting in a panel. And this is happening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimuli, and it's good to hear that there's steps that you're taking. I've personally sat in the AJS Ngong office, and at least that particular panel I know is constituted properly in terms of gender parity. So we'll come back to you, Mr. Kimuli. So our next, for the next panelist, who is Lucy Mulago. So Madam Lucy Mulago, you are a member of the FIDA board, and FIDA has has been a long-standing champion on women's legal rights. So how do you see the intersection of formal legal protections and AJS evolving to ensure women's agency is preserved? So how is this particular agenda unfolding from the side of FIDA? And also just to mention, because FIDA is one of the implementers of AJS in the communities, so you could also share with us what FIDA has been doing to make AJS more inclusive within from where you stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly and see you.
For FIDA Kenya, one of the key objectives of FIDA Kenya is to ensure access to justice for women and girls. And for access to justice to happen, FIDA has been, as you've correctly put, FIDA has been on the forefront just to ensure that women and girls are on the table where decisions are being made, not just for alternative justice systems, but for everything else. So the first thing is access to justice, and this has been done through a lot of sensitization across the country for women and girls. And apart from that, FIDA has been training its clients, those are the vulnerable women and girls, just to ensure that they are able to self-represent in whatever fora. It could be, I like what Mr. Kimuli said, that traditional as per the Constitution does not mean what we all think of, but representation when it comes to other fora where decisions are being made or where the disputes are being resolved. FIDA has been at the forefront of that. And from the statistics that is, I know you're going to ask me, this is part of what is shared on the website. I'll share the links to that. There's been a lot of improvement when it comes to case clearance, because traditionally, before 2015 and before even the 2010 Constitution, it was very difficult for women and girls. But because we've embraced and we've encouraged people to embrace things like mediation, other forms of dispute resolution, we've seen that there has been a faster clearance of disputes. That is as regards to access to justice. The other one is when it comes to policy and law reform. It's good you've noted that FIDA has been on that table from the inception. It has been at the forefront, just ensuring that whatever policy is made by the committee chaired by my seniors, that is Mr. Kimuli and Ms. Aluda, to ensure that whatever policy is made as regards to alternative justice systems, the policies are reflecting or they are protecting gender justice, just to ensure that women are protected, the rights of women when it comes to access to justice are protected. And as I mentioned, there's been a lot of public awareness and education, just to ensure that women are informed better of their rights, and not just their rights, but also what to do in different circumstances. And it's good to mention that FIDA has been working closely with other like-minded partners. It is people like the judiciary, of course, lawyers, the Law Society of Kenya, other CSOs, because the work cannot be done by FIDA alone. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's indeed commendable that the work FIDA has done to champion AJS at the local level through capacity strengthening of community, the community on the ground, as well as engaging at policy level and, of course, championing the rights of women. I will come back to you on something that I would like to tag when we have a conversation with Miri Njeri. But for now, allow me to move to Lucy Njoki from GROOTS. Lucy, at the beginning, you mentioned that GROOTS works a lot with communities. And so for you, you feel you're able to see the policy, the AJS policy translate on the ground. You know, we say vitu kwa ground saa ingine ukwa different. So we want to hear from your experience, Lucy, as an AJS practitioner working on the ground with grassroots women. How has the conversation on gender justice and AJS translated in your context?
Thank you again for the opportunity. And the AJS has helped us to have opportunities. And one of the opportunities that I would like to say is about proximity and accessibility, because now the justice has come closer to the women who we work with at the grassroots level. There is no longer distance to get justice. So to us, it is an advantage to us. Though initially we used to do the ADR, the alternative resolution mechanism, through our community watchdog, land and property watchdog groups, which are groups formed in our communities we form groups whenever there is dispute, they can go and arbitrate or mediate or find a way on how the woman, maybe it is disinheritance of blood, gets justice. So, and also we find that with the AJS community trust us as the group which did the AJS model, and they trust us more than the formal systems. There is also speed and affordability, because when you leap of the court way, find there are a lot of expenses that happens around that. The formal case can also take long or can take many years, and also there is maybe money. Also, for example, maybe someone needs a lawyer. So for us, we feel AJS is good because it's like it has formalized what we used to do at the grassroots level, maybe doing those petitions, arbitrations among the community. To us, AJS is like it has formalized what the women have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for highlighting such an important aspect of access to justice. And you've talked about access with regards to proximity for the women. You've talked about access with regards to costs, with regards to also looking at finances, which is costs, and also now looking at how is the system going to stay accountable through the watchdog system. And you've been able to mention the roles that women have played. Maybe Lucy, just very briefly, could you explain how GROOTS is set up with regards to AJS? You train the women and they go and work in different places, or what? How does it look like?
Okay, GROOTS Kenya works in community-based organizations and self-help groups, especially with children. And for the model of land rights or inheritance and property rights, for that program we had to look for a model of how we'll be able to handle the cases, and that's how we formed the groups of watchdog group members. And the watchdog group members are the community surrounding a certain community, and they comprise of maybe the Nyumbakumi men and women of the Nyumbakumi, the other leaders in the community, and some of the community members themselves. And they come together for them so that whenever they hear a certain case, maybe of inheritance, land is inheritance of property rights, they interject, and as they try to arbitrate or mediate among the family members. And if the case does not go through, then it's when we go ahead maybe to the chief, or we try to look for pro bono lawyers.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing the model that GROOTS Kenya is using. I mean, it's an interesting model, and we'll come back to you now for you to share more as an AJS practitioner yourself. So we'll come back to you a little bit later, but thank you so much for sharing that, how it's translating in that regard. So I'd like us to now shift gears and look at, we have heard from what it looked like from a policy point of view nationally, from Mr. Kimuli. Then we had from FIDA Kenya, which is both at policy and implementation level. Then we've heard from GROOTS Kenya, who are at the base and who are literally experiencing AJS on the ground, and you've heard how it works and how it has impacted justice at that level. So we want to now hear from at an international policy level, and we have with us Ms. Mary Jerry, and her work revolves around ending violence against women and GBV. So, Mary, would you like to share with us from your perspective? We do know that AJS has, whereas it's effective, it does have its own limitations in as far as the types of cases it deals with. And even in the wake of what is happening nationally here in Kenya, we are seeing increased cases of gender-based violence, a lot of femicide. What role would AJS be playing from where you sit? And also from now a policy perspective, how do you see the question of gender justice and AJS? So thank you so much, Ms. Mary. Please, you can take the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's very interesting to also hear that we've made quite a very good progress, and we continue to make that because I guess all of us have one channel. Like, we want to see enhanced access to justice. So we want to see more access, whether geographically, financially, proximity-wise. And we also want to see faster and less intimidating form of justice for women. So the whole thing, especially when we look at alternative justice system from the UN Women, it is that it is what we frame, or it is what we have towards increasing access to justice. And in it, whether formal or informal, customary or community-based, it should always uphold women's rights, agency, dignity, and equality. And I think it was Mr. Kimuli who said that there are some of those examples that we see from community that we know for sure they are either indignifying people, or they are making people more scared, because we have a formal system that people are scared of, that it's too formal, that it shouldn't be what you're looking for. And but on the other hand, you go into one that is albeit informal, but very humiliating. And so therefore, it is always important for us to know that whenever we seek for alternative justice system, it is important that it continues to dignify and it continues to look for the bigger good. UN Women, for sure, believes in the alternative justice system. We are very affiliated and work well with the Council of Traditional Leaders of Africa. You might know them, KOTLA. And these are leaders that really work towards bridging that the formality between the formal system, but also ensuring that at the community level, then justice is realized and justice is accessed in the most simple way. So, of course, in it, there could be some need to look at concerns. And some of those concerns may be that the informal justice system may exclude women. Look at most of our, maybe where we come from. In those discussions, ni kikao cha wazee. So when it's kikao cha wazee, in our colloquial language, wazee does not necessarily mean an older person. It might be meaning an older man. So therefore, exclusion starts to happen. And so ukiambiwa unapelekwa kikao cha wazee, you already feel that you're disadvantaged. There's the other aspect that we would always be careful to check around social norms, that the social norms that are being practiced during alternative justice system are not those that go into perpetuating or into creating more harm. So the certain principles would always be very important, that we ensure that we are not causing more harm. We are not discriminating. And again, if you look at our constitution, and several speakers before me have already referred to the constitution, that it is important that for us to know if our values, our constitutional values are inclusive. And so non-discrimination is something that we really have to look and say that this is part of what we enhance when you're looking at alternative justice system. There's also something that we always have to look at and see that prioritizing family or community harmony over women's rights is something that we really have to look at. Most of the time, morality comes into play. And you find that when it comes to maybe cases that are being adjudicated, be they land cases, be they domestic violence cases, issues of morality come in, issues of family harmony comes in, and therein prioritizing women's rights may be relegated to the back. So it's very important that we look and say, are we causing more pressure to the survivor, for example, as against her standing up, or as against her being able to say no, or to say that I'm dissatisfied, or to be seen as if then you will be disadvantaged if you stand for certain rights. But generally speaking, that it's a very welcome way of us really solving problems faster, really having frontliners that can be able to be agents of solving disputes much faster, ensuring that the community stays in harmony, ensuring that referral is swift, but also to set certain clear rules. That the fact that maybe we are frontliners in alternative justice system, there are matters that we must stay away from. Like, for example, if it's matters of sexual violence, then we must there must be rules that we keep saying, and we do not keep, we do not minimize, and we do not say it was only, but that there are certain rules that go cut across. But also that the AJS actors are also trained specifically on GBV and identifying red flags, that we do not have the usual thing of saying, oh, Nikidogo too, or it wasn't much, but that they can be able to do this. And many actors are placed in places where they have access to people, for example, elders, or for example, people that are faith leaders, community justice actors, maybe some of them are teachers. So just being able to identify what are the red flags, and where isn't it, is alternative justice really causing harm, or is really disadvantaging one sector. But also just being able to know that referral is okay. When you refer someone, it's not like you failed, not at all. But that it's to recognize that your role was up to a certain extent, but the other extent requires someone else. Just like all of us would know, when someone is injured, they need to go for medical care, and we are not the medics. So that would also be very empowering, but also very liberating, that when you are an actor, you do not have to worry that people might find you failing when all you're doing, you're referring, because actually that is the role, to be able to know who is the appropriate person for us to be able to refer to. But also finally, for me to mention that there are certain parameters that are important for us to always consider, like issues of confidentiality, issues of consent. We find that even within our own criminal justice system, issues of consent, if a case occurs, are we just bundled into you are PW1, your witness, prosecution witness number 1, and so you must proceed on with the case? Or can you say that, no, I do not want to prosecute, even though the case is seen as maybe someone else may call it serious? So how is it the issue of confidentiality, the issue of consent? How is it the issue that really places the survivor at the center of things? So that's what I would say at this point. But just to reiterate that it's very important how then we continue to enhance the alternative justice system as a faster way of access to justice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary. And I like what you talked about, especially with regards to parameters, knowing where, the powers of you as an AJS practitioner starts and end, where you need to, also leverage the other forms of justice systems to ensure that no violations of rights are done. I have a question, and perhaps you could answer it together with Lucy Mulago. There's growing cases of femicide right now in Kenya. I don't know, somebody's mic is on. Thank you. There is a lot of growing cases of femicide and a lot of violence against women. How can AJS be utilized, not just to respond, but also to prevent because justice is not just about reacting, but it's also about preventing. How well placed are we within the AJS architecture from your point of view? Maybe you can take that in a minute, and we can also have a minute from Lucy Mulago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I actually think the biggest player in preventing femicide, one of the biggest players would be the alternative justice system. Because when you look at ourselves, femicide is the ultimate. It is escalated GBV. It doesn't just occur. It is systemic. It is systematic. And so if we can look at the social analysis of it, if we can look and say that what has happened is something that shouldn't have happened in the first place, that the communities are harmonized, that we look at what is the root cause. Why are we not respecting women's rights? Why are we not respecting each other? What is happening to the fabric of the community? Why is it so easy to say nitakuua na nakuua? You know, and what is it, and why is it so easy for someone to say, oh, alifanya nini? Ati nani ameuawa? Alifanya nini? Like, why must I why must it be so easy to actually start to find fault? So I find that alternative justice system goes into the roots of our communities, and it is right there where social norms can actually start to go into respecting women. That's where social norms would be looked at and really be tuned around our fabric, our respect for life, and our accountability. So if we can't be held, because the formal justice system is more punitive, or is more designed to go into punishing what has been done, but then it has been done. So life is lost, and you find many families husema tutafanya nini there's nothing that can return someone. It's the ultimate. So therefore, it's very important when all that is then prevented by going back into communities, by looking at our fabric and looking at our social norms that go into much more respecting the women.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Mary. And I can see the group chat is active with a question on that, but we'll take it just after this. Lucy, do you have something you'd like to share with that regard?
Yes, I'd say that it's unfortunate that the numbers are rising by the day. And just like Mary has said, it's time that we acknowledge the court system is not doing enough. And it's time we went back to the society through AJS, through things like dialogue, so that we are able to talk to each other as a society. What is the problem? Why are women being killed every day? Because as she has said, in the courtroom, what is happening, the judicial officer or the fact finder just has the accused person and the victim. But we are seeing, even if they're being jailed or being found culpable, femicide is just on the rise by the day. So it is time we went back to the communities and talked to each other through dialogue, through sensitizations, to see what is the problem. And other than that, AJS has a role, because women are not just being killed. It is systematic in a way that it is tied to something. It is tied to maybe an economic inequality. It is tied to the land question in the rural areas. If AJS is able to penetrate further in all the other sectors of the economy or the society, then these issues will be addressed, because somebody just doesn't wake up and kill. And to get to the question, to get to the root, I believe AJS is better placed than just the traditional court system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those insights. And even just for both of you, you've shared that this is something that must go back to the roots, and perhaps AJS has a very big role because it's shaped by social norms itself. So we'll shift gears and go to Miss Ria. And Ria, you work in the International Development Organization. Is mic that's on. Jabura, kindly help me mute. Thank you, Naomi. All right. So we have Ria, and drawing from your work from the IDLO. The IDLO is shaping it has been part of shaping AJS in Kenya, and I believe in other jurisdictions from your perspective on women and the law, what global best practices, data on that can we get globally to compare ourselves as Kenya to others and learn or use Kenya as a jurisdiction to learn from? Maybe you could share some insights on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy. And again, thank you for the invitation. And it's a pleasure to share Idealo's thoughts and insights on this matter. So as several of you know, we've been engaged in Kenya for more than 10 years, I believe almost 15 years. And on the subject of AJS, or how we also state it in Idealo, CIJ systems, customary and formal justice systems, Idealo has also been engaged in this area for more than 2 decades now. In 2020, one of the things that we've done at Idealo was publish a report that looked at strategic engagement modalities for working with CIJ systems with a focus on women's human rights. So one of the biggest questions then was that, why do we need to engage with the systems if we are, women's human rights advocates? Taking into account the stories around how these systems have also violated women's rights in various forms. And then the second question was around what do we need to do, which I think, Joy, was your question. What are the modalities for engagement? So I think we've answered the why in the first set of questions, but now I think what we came about in a big experts groups meeting that informed this publication, including experts from Kenya, was really to highlight some key policy recommendations about what should be central, non-negotiables when we deal with CIJ systems. And I would use global examples because obviously I'm coming in with global perspective. First is, I think that's what everybody said, we need to ensure that women's human rights are recognized as central and indispensable to engagement with CIJ systems. So it's not one or the other. We cannot only prioritize half of the population when we're dealing with the CIJ systems and ignore the other half. So all engagements with CIJ systems must place women's concerns at the center of the conversation. And it also means thinking about various groups of women, the range of contexts that they're situated in, so that we stay true to the principle that we really leave no one behind, which is very core to AJS. So whether these are rural women or migrant women or other groups that are also facing severe exclusion in society, we need to make sure that their rights are also central to as we talk about AJS and CIJ systems. I think the second principle we highlighted is that we need to support women's empowerment when we work with these systems. And a very core principle is that we must ensure that women can make informed decisions when seeking justice and to participate and benefit from the AJS decision-making processes. So one, I think many speakers, including Mary, has highlighted this, that we need to build women's capacity to make informed decision on how best to protect their rights and pursue justice in a safe environment. So whether they use formal justice systems or AJS, safety, security, and informed consent and decisions are important. So often we hear like paralegals or lawyers, justice practitioners seek almost replacing women's decisions because they feel that is the best way forward. But we also need to look at women as an agent of her own, of her own life, and that she can make these choices given, options. And I think the third point I wanted to make, and this is really about the debate about should we engage with CIJ systems or AJS, because in many places, not only do they discriminate against women's rights, they are also sites where violence against women also occur. They made, in many places in the world, some of the decisions are actually forms of gender-based violence. So here, I think we highlighted that in addition to making women's human rights as central, it's also important for us to support AJS systems that promote women's human rights who are willing and able and committed to promote it. So there are AJS systems vary country to country, and even within countries, they vary. So we have to vet these systems, which systems are committed, which systems are willing to push women's human rights forward and promote those systems. There are some entry points that I'd like to highlight, and some of them are also repetitive with some of the key policy points. I think the first one is really when we look for good practices, the first one is really women's empowerment. So strengthen women's knowledge of their rights and their knowledge of the law, both customary laws and formal laws. So just because women are working on informal justice systems or seeking justice within customary systems doesn't mean they shouldn't know what their rights are under formal laws as well. The second is, of course, amplify the work of local women's organizations who have been supporting women and women's interests in the systems. And it's critical for these organizations, especially in the current environment, to also be sustained throughout this process. I think the second point I wanted to make, which I've already also made earlier, is that we need to improve gender sensitivity and responsiveness of CIJ actors. So we've highlighted training, but in many cases, it also means a variety of capacity building measures. Some of them means visiting the community, hearing women's justice needs themselves, looking at impact of certain decisions that they make on women. It also means locating and eliminating processes, procedures, or practices that restricts women's human rights. So women being unable to represent themselves, discriminatory justice decisions where women are treated as objects, or there is a need to locate and eliminate these processes through conversations, through consultations, and in many aspects, if possible, community consensus about changing customs. And then I would like to highlight that one of the key important things here is looking at women's representation and leadership in CIJ or AJS decision making. So we often looked at women only as beneficiaries of the AJS system. Yeah. So when we talk about number of women in CIJ, we're looking at women who are able to access justice, but it's important for us to also shine the light that women are also justice providers. So Idealo, a couple of years ago, did a publication on women's leadership and participation in AJS systems. And we've highlighted about 10 roles as a minimum that women played, roles that are often under-recognized and undervalued. So women are there as adjudicators, as arbitrators, as paralegals, as legal aid providers, community law assessors, and even state customary court officials. So it's important for us to recognize those roles and change this narrative that women are only recipients of justice, because we are not. And the last point is around strengthening research and building alliances. So as we build it locally and nationally, it's also important to build it globally. We need to change the narrative that, when it comes to AJS, they are all this absolute narrative that they are all discriminatory against women, because as we know, it is not true. And as we know, women are actually able to access justice through the system. So research such as the ones that we all do and the partnerships that we all have are very valuable moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ria, for even moving us forward to looking at what would sensitive AJS, gender justice AJS look like based on global practice. And you've highlighted quite a number of things. Just to mention a few, you've talked about looking at the systems, then are they designed to foster that gender justice? Looking at the representation in those AJS setups, are they gender inclusive? Are they representing women, especially Also, you've touched on training, that capacity strengthening and research. So we'd be very keen, of course, moving forward to just look at, numbers from IDLO, and I'm sure a lot of that will be shared in the conference. As I mentioned to our esteemed panel and audience, we will be having the AJS conference taking place from 16th to 19th of June, and this year we'll be talking about data, and data is what will help us know, are we making progress or are we not making progress? And thank you so much for that sharing. We have a number of questions that have come up for our panelists, and thank you for your patience to those who sent their questions earlier on. There's a question from our senior Dr. Joy Mbabu, who's someone who's very esteemed in justice systems, and she champions communities and justice. She's asking, just curious, why have we named it AJS and not TJS? And I would believe Mr. Kimuli would be best placed to answer that. Why AJS and not TJS? So I'll just mention some of the questions, like 3, then we can take them. Then kindly mute. Thank you. Then we have a question from Lorraine Ochel, who's from IDLO. She says that, thank you so much for the presentations. I'm Lorraine Ochel. In the current context, there has been significant surge of GBV, femicide, infanticide, and all of which constitutes serious criminal offenses. At the same time, several misconceptions are increasingly circulating on social media regarding the perceived role of AJS in addressing these crimes, with the growing expectation being placed on the community level of AJS actors. So what measures are being undertaken to address the clarity on these misconceptions, particularly under the understanding that AJS is not a substitute for the formal justice system? I think that question piggybacks on the question that I had asked earlier on. So maybe I would request I'd request Lucy from FIDA to take that question. Then we have another question from Dijma Africa. I would believe that might be somebody I know, Lisa, and she's asking a humble suggestion. As we continue sensitizing communities on femicide and related forms of violence through AJS, we must also intentionally strengthen and make reporting systems accessible to women with disabilities. Women with disabilities, including the deaf, the blind, and just women with intellectual disabilities as well. So maybe I can have those 3 questions answered, and then we can come back to the next set of questions. So for our audience, please just send in your questions, or can put up your hand and we'll see you. So for our panelists, kindly just take literally 1 minute to answer the question. So we can start with you, Mr. Kimuli. Mr. Kimuli?
Yes, thank you so much. So in that 1 minute, when we started, we didn't have a name, as in AJS, as a task force. We did a lot of work to determine what we shall call our committee, our task force, and so on and so forth. And we were not given the name, and we kept quoting Shakespeare and asking, Shakespeare says, what's in a name? And we discovered that a name is very important. We didn't use the word traditional because traditional would be restrictive in a sense. And we wanted to achieve the actual definition of alternative justice. It's wide. It just doesn't deal with disputes that have crystallized. It deals with preemptive actions that are taken to prevent disputes from and anticipate disputes before they happen. And it deals with restoration. It deals with matters that affect our communities that could foment disputes in future, which our formal justice systems may not define as disputes. Or under the doctrine of ripeness may say, not yet time. But those are matters that alternative justice systems deals with in the community. And so we agreed on alternative justice systems. Alternative, which is a word used in the Constitution, but also mean that the formal justice system represented by the courts and tribunals is the fulcrum, and it is the go-to system of dispute resolution if nothing else works. All other modes of dispute resolution entail your choice, your agency. You can choose to go for arbitration, you can choose to go to mediation, you can choose to go for conciliation, you can choose to go before the elders, but you don't have a choice when it comes to the court system. And therefore, it is only in that sense that all these other modes of dispute resolution are called alternative. It doesn't mean they are inferior, or they are less important, or they are less significant. It is just that you have a choice to exercise your agency in terms of Article 1 of the Constitution. And justice means that it's justice as constituted under the Constitution and justice as we know it. And any system that resolves disputes must lend itself to the true definition of a justice system. It cannot be inferior. It cannot be deficient. And if it is deficient, it needs to be fixed. And therefore, the justice that comes from the court is in equal measure with the justice that comes from forums outside the court. And if a forum outside the court does not meet the true definition of a justice system, then it cannot be promoted. And why did we say systems? Because they are manifold. You cannot pigeonhole dispute resolution mechanisms because they are evolving with time and as people change and as situations change.
Mary, kindly mute. Mary.
And as communities adjust to their environments, dispute resolution systems continue to change. And so we call them systems and not just a system. And I believe the definition is understood.
Thank you so much. That is well understood, that it's alternative from the perspective that it's, it's giving people an option to choose what works for them. Thank you so much for that. There was a question around GBV. I believe we answered that extensively, unless Lucy would like something to add, or Mary, anything on that?
I believe we did. And just to mention that there was a task force that was formed last year when the cases were just growing by the day and recommendations were made. And we've seen clearly perhaps these recommendations have not been actualized. What FIDA is saying is that the recommendations of the task force led by the former DCJ, that is Nancy Baraza, they need to be actualized. The government or the president needs to make sure that what the task force recommended is actually implemented to end the growing cases of GBV and the whole monster called femicide in this country.
Thank you. And while you're on your feet, maybe just for clarity's sake, what is the jurisdiction of AJS when it comes to dealing with such matters, so that there is no confusion as to what AJS can do and not do? Thank you.
Clearly, the alternative justice systems have a very limited jurisdiction when it comes to these issues of femicide, the murders. I think it's Lorraine, she's talked about children being killed. When there is a murder or people are being killed, then these cases cannot be referred to AJS. They have to go back to the court system, the formal court system. But just like I said, we are acknowledging that perhaps the court system is very reactive. But if we went back and maybe had discussions within our communities, within the society, then maybe these cases can be prevented, because the court is only reacting once something has already been done.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy, for that. I appreciate. So I'll take one last question because of time, and we need to do our parting shots from all the panelists. There's a question around intersectionalities. When we talk about women, it's not just the question of women, but there's the intersectionality of now having women with disabilities. How are we including them even as we think of gender justice within AJS? So I will open that to any panelists who would like to take that question. Going once.
I can
Any
answer
panel?
that.
Thank you, Ria.
But yes, I'm happy to answer that question, but perhaps from a global perspective, I think it's really critical that we embed an intersectional approach. And one way of actually doing this is, I mentioned, for example, research or action-oriented research. Like we need to ask the right questions so we are able to know where the challenges are. So, for example, in one of the cases that we looked into, women are part of the CIJ of the AJS systems in Solomon Islands and in Vanuatu and the Pacific Islands. But then we realized those who are not there are usually women coming from other communities who are married into into this community. So we realize that that is where the discrimination lies. So it's important to do that. And I think the point about women with disabilities, poor women, women in poverty, these are very valid questions, and we need to have really good research around where exactly are they discriminated against and what are their needs. And the other point I wanted to make, when we do data-driven AJS systems, is really like, what are the interventions? Are we asking the right questions? So there are surveys, for example, that are very important, legal surveys, satisfaction surveys of users, but we also need to do audits of CIJ systems. Like, do they have the policies and the processes that enables various groups of women and justice seekers to be able to see that? And my last point is really around digitalization. So many CIJ systems now are looking at digitizing their systems. So it's important for us to also look into that. We may not have all the answers, and it may not address all different types of AJS, but it's important to look at who gets left behind when we're talking about digitalization of CIJ systems as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And Ria has actually put some of the publications on the chat. Please do have a look to see what IDLO is doing. I had closed the question section, but there is one that has come up. It would do injustice if I don't answer it. Gladys Kilonzo asks, no one has talked about men who suffer in silence. And I'd like Lucy Njoki from Groots to talk about, being a grassroots organization that's mostly focused on women. How are you including men in this conversation of AJS? And so from a Groots perspective, Lucy Njoki.
Okay,
Thank
we live
you.
in a patriarchal society, and sometimes it is very hard even for men to confess that somebody has been maybe something wrong, like any form of gender-based violence has happened because of being socialized, and even how that person will be perceived, even if they go maybe to, for example, to a police station to report such a case. Sometimes you'll hear their king, how can you, for example, be beaten by a woman? So those are some of the challenges that we face, that sometimes men feel they don't want to speak up. But as Groots Kenya movement, we have a model we call Men for Women Champions. And these are the ones, even when for women,
Lucy, we are losing you.
In the pastoral areas.
Lucy, you're breaking.
So
you are breaking for a minute. I don't know if you're back. Just speak again.
Are you getting me now?
Now you're better. Yes, you're talking about Laikipia. Yes.
Yeah, it's Laikipia, and I'm talking about pastoralists. And when we were advocating for the women to be put in the registers, in the community land registers, we had to use the men who are custodian of culture, so that now we form groups of Men for Women Champions. They are called Men for Women Champions, or Men who support women initiative, and so that they can be able to support through encouraging the other men to support women. So that's how we've been doing it, and even You're still
Thank you.
getting,
Yes, I'm getting you.
yeah.
And
So
yes,
in
and
those areas where we have male-dominated decision making, we use the men for women champion so that they can be able to support them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucy, for that. And just to say what you said, I like what you said, men for women champions, and also making sure that men are also not left behind in this conversation. And I'll go back to what Mr. Kimuli said in the beginning, that justice is for all. It was not just meant for men or just for women. And so a balanced system would have to incorporate all. So thank you so much. And it's amazing to hear what Groots is actually doing to build men allies who help balance the system. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our webinar. It has been an exciting conversation, and I do not want to keep you past the time. But I'd like to invite a member from our executive board, Women in ADR, to just come and share some, just close for us. And as she comes, I'd like to, because I may not get a chance to speak again, I would like to just say that remember that we do have our AJS conference happening in Embu from the 16th to the 19th of June, coming up in June. So please make sure you sign up. We'll be sharing the details on that. And if you wish to also join Women in ADR as a member, the details have been posted on the chat box. So with that, it has been lovely hosting this session. I now hand over to our executive member, Phyllis Wangwe, to close for us. And asanteni sana. And thank you so much to our distinguished panelists for sharing with soul. Thank you so much. Phyllis, over to
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Joy. Before the
Yes.
member of the executive comes in from the AJS Secretariat, and Kimuli being a member of the committee, I think it's been a very interesting webinar, looking at some of the things that we need to address. I like the approach by Mary, talking about the role of AJS in preventing femicide, in dealing with femicide, which is a hot issue. So I think it's something that we need to pick it up from here. I like the approach of data from RARE, that we need to look at data. And this data also deals with the issue of how many women with disabilities are able to access some of these panels, and looking at them not only being justice seekers, but also justice providers. So when we look at the data issue, it will also tell us how well we are doing or what are the areas that we need to address. I like the approach by Kimuli, of course, in what is in a name, and why we look at it as systems and not just dealing with a case that is already in court. And of course, the approach by Lucy, that using men who are champions for women to address these issues. And lastly is my fellow member of FIDA, Lucy, that we need to go back to the question, where did it come from and how do we deal with it? So I think these are conversations we all need to look at, addressing them in terms from the policy level, from the legal level, from the research perspective. And we should create a movement, AJS for women, and be able to move on this conversation. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for those who have asked questions. And let's meet in Embu. Back to you, a member of the executive board.
Thank you, Jemima. Phyllis, you may have our last word. Thank you.
Thank you, Jemima. You've actually said what I was going to say, but you even said it better. And we really do appreciate everyone who has made it here today, all the panelists and all the members who have been able to join in. The conversation has been very, very rich. And we really appreciate all the feedback that we are getting and just the interaction from all the participants. This has really been, yes, we have hosted as Women in ADR, but it has really been made possible because of the partnership with the AJS. And we are very, very grateful for the opportunity. And just as Jemima has said and noted all the points, very critical that we look into these aspects as we are dealing with these issues. And I like the question that you've asked, what about the men who suffer in silence? I've been in forums whereby women actually mock men who are beaten. And one thing I told them, I cannot do that. Can you imagine if it was your brother? Can you imagine if it was your father who is being beaten by a woman? And what I've realized that whenever I say that, it shifts. Some women don't seem to care as long as it's a man in the space or anything like that. But when it is your own son, when it is your own brother that is being beaten by a woman for whatever reason, then the dynamics do change. And we have to realize that all these men have people who love them, just as all of us women have women who love us, so that anybody abusing us in any way is not something that should be tolerated in any way possible. So thanks so much for that question and for the input and the importance of men for women champions, very critical. Because again, I realize sometimes men don't even understand why we have women in ADR or why we want now women in AJS. It's until they're in such forums that they also get equipped and educated, and in the process can also educate and educate other men, which is very, very critical, and also educate other women, the community generally, so that we all move away from this aspect of violence against each other in one way or the other. Importance again, audits, very critical that they be done. Digitizing, we should not be left behind in all that we are doing. So as women in ADR, is just to emphasize, we are very, very grateful for those of us who have been able to make it here. And we hope we shall all meet in Embu, 16th to 19th of June. And those who are willing to join Women in ADR, please do feel free to reach out. I've seen there's a comment from Aileen. We'll ask one of us to reach out to you on email, giving you the details on how to join us. So thank you, so that I don't talk again too much. I can see we've already beaten into some 9 minutes. Thank you, Joy and team. You've done a wonderful, wonderful job, and we really do appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely weekend to everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the weekend.
See
Enjoy,
you.
enjoy. And the holiday.
Yes.
Oh, there's a holiday. Oh,
Yes, Monday. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Great.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Ria. Bye.